Good evening. Welcome to the March 2016 meeting of the Johnson County Community College Board of Trustees. Trustee Lindstrom is not here today. He has a conflict with his service on the board of the Kansas Turnpike Association, which came up because we moved our meeting because of spring break. So he is working for the public even though he's not here today. Please join me in the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Roll call and recognition of visitors.
Yes, visitors this evening are Dick Carter, Roberta Everslage, and Ryan Freeman.
Okay. Welcome. The next item on our agenda is the open forum period of the board meeting. This is a section of the agenda, is a time for members of the community to provide comments to the board. There'll be one open forum period during each regularly scheduled board meeting. Comments are limited to 5 minutes unless a significant number of folks have signed up to speak, in which case the chair has the opportunity to limit that time. In order to be recognized, individuals must register at the door at each board meeting prior to the open forum agenda item. When addressing the board, registered speakers should be respectful and civil and should not address matters related to individual personnel matters with the college. As a practice, the college does not respond in this setting when the matters concern personnel issues or matters being addressed through our established grievance or suggestion processes or are otherwise the subject of review by the college or the board. Do we have anybody who's signed up for open forum this evening?
No.
I always should ask first. I think it's important that we let people know there's an open forum session, despite how tedious it becomes as I repeat that on meetings when nobody has signed up. The next item is awards and recognition.
Mr. Musil, we have no awards or recognitions this evening.
I disagree. I thought this was an opportune time during the meeting.
This is a good start for the meeting.
We were all disappointed that our men's and women's basketball teams did not make their respective national tournaments. But the Kansas City, Kansas Community College Blue Demon women won the national championship here on our campus Saturday night. And so for 2 years in a row, Kansas has been the representative, has held the national championship of NJCAA Division II women's national title. So I think it's worthy that we recognize that here and congratulate the Kansas City, Kansas Community College women. Secondly, our own trustee Ingram, it was in the paper this morning that her husband, Steve Ingram, who has been basketball coach at Shawnee Mission South on the girls' side for 20-plus years.
Olathe South.
Olathe South, I apologize. Olathe South girls, who made their 12th straight state championship tournament this year, has been named as an assistant coach in the women's McDonald's All-American game in Chicago next week. And so he'll be traveling there Saturday, and I think Nancy's going to go up on Monday to be there with him. So it's quite an honor to be one of the assistant coaches for that national team. It will be televised on ESPNU. I'm not sure of the day, but I saw that in the paper. So we'll look for Wednesday night.
5:30.
5:30 Central Daylight Time. We'll look for assistant coach Steve Ingram on the sidelines, and we'll look for Nancy
In the crowd.
So I think congratulations are in order to Steve. He's been highly successful, not just in getting to state championships and winning them, but in turning out players of character. So that's great for our community. All right. Sorry, I didn't give you a heads up on that.
And that concludes my report.
We're ready for the Student Senate report is John. John Rice, please come forward, our Student Senate President.
Thank you, and I'd like to thank the board again for allowing me to come speak today. It is always an honor and a pleasure for me. Student Senate has been working on a number of projects this semester. Recently, we developed ad hoc committees. One of them was one that would investigate getting a designated parking spot for wounded warriors. And after just one meeting, the committee was successful. We turned it over to the police department and Veteran Services, and soon we will have a Wounded Warriors parking spot. So after just one meeting, we were very thankful to that committee. Earlier this semester, Student Senate hosted a town hall meeting on inclusion. The town hall featured a panel of students and gave those students, as well as members of the audience, an opportunity to talk about their experiences on campus regarding inclusion. And giving these students a direct voice is one way, or one of the jobs that Student Senate considers most central. And later this semester, we're hoping to have more of those town hall meetings and also a political debate between the different political clubs on campus. So we're working on getting those organized right now. Something else we've been doing this semester that Dr. Sopcich has taken part in is games with Student Senate. We've been playing volleyball out on the Fountain Square. So if anybody here wants to play volleyball with us, we'd appreciate having you. I know
It's a lot of fun, actually. Thanks for,
we
thanks
have
for
to
the
show
opportunity.
pictures of you playing.
Yes, you did, yeah.
Another area which Student Senate takes pride in their work is service projects. So last semester, we hosted JCCC Gives and Photos with Santa and Trick or Treat for Kids. And this semester, we brought back a tradition from a few years ago called Daffodil Days. And during Daffodil Days, we sell daffodils, and all our proceeds go to the American Cancer Society. And we were able to raise $480. We sold all of our flowers, and that was a really great thing. We have also given $36,000 to clubs out of our $38,000 budget, and we expect to give the rest away very soon. And we've approved several new clubs. We've had several new senators join us. We're back up to 28 senators out of 30, and we have 4 or 5 people interested in joining right now, so we should have a full Senate very shortly. And obviously, having the full amount of senators makes Student Senate run most effectively. Another really exciting thing that's happening right now is officer elections are about to happen in just a couple of weeks, as well as senator re-elections. So we'll be selecting a new executive board, and there are a lot of candidates running, and I think they're all very qualified, so we're very excited for that to be happening. Finally, I would like to thank the board again. Last semester, Student Senate had concerns about campus safety, and the board also made campus safety a top priority. And when we asked for donations for JCCC Gives, the board stepped up and helped us raise money for that, more than Student Senate had ever raised for JCCC Gives. Several of you have been generous enough to attend our events, and you've been very friendly and willing to work with us. And I really have a deep appreciation for your support, because I know, without it, Student Senate really couldn't be where it is. Working with members of this school's administration and with the Board of Trustees is part of what makes Student Senate, working in the Student Senate, really enjoyable. So thank you all so much, both for inviting me today and also for your collaboration. I look forward to what the rest of the semester was. So thank you very much.
Any questions for John? I don't know if I'm giving away a story that the Ledger might be publishing, but I did get a question this week from the Ledger about, at least how the board perceives the Student Senate, and I spoke on behalf of myself, but thought I spoke on behalf of the board, that we listen, we appreciate, we want to know what you guys think as students and as representatives of the students about what's going on campus, and so we really appreciate your reports too, and your communications that we hear from students between board meetings as well as at the board meetings. But I will tell you, if you're going to have one meeting and get something done, you're going to continue to embarrass this board like that. By being that efficient, we may have to rethink that. Joe?
I would just like to thank President Rives for his leadership. I think if you've ever attended a Student Senate meeting, you can see that those can be a challenge, and John does a heck of a job managing that. Also, I think the projects that the Student Senate has undertaken over the past year reflect a wide spectrum of activities, from volleyball, which I partook in, but also the Wounded Warriors, your inclusion seminars. All those are very, very important and relevant to the campus. So thank you, John, you did a great job.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. Oh, Nancy?
I just wanted to say, too, it sounds like you have an enthusiastic lot out there who are interested in being involved, and that's really kudos to you as well for your leadership. So thank you.
Thank you.
Enjoy the rest of your semester. We'll see you in April as we get closer to finals. Okay, our lobbyist report, Mr. Carter, fresh from Topeka, where everything's up to date or whatever.
Fresh is an interesting adjective to use in this particular case. I've been doing this for more than 20 years, and I find myself before the microphone and before this board today trying to figure out how best to describe just exactly what's been going on in Topeka, and it is very difficult to find the words to explain to folks the activities and the attitudes and the temperature of things in Topeka, and so I'll do my best as I do every month when I come before you, but it's just interesting. Rules govern everything and guide everything in Topeka, and if you know the rules, there are lots of ways to pass bills, kill bills, introduce bills, keep bills alive, and whatnot. And we are not participating in a public policy-making process like Kansas has historically done. And so that makes it incredibly difficult to not only follow the process, but to participate in the process. And so we spend our time these days making sure that all the balls that we have up in the air don't fall and hit the ground. And inevitably, you do sometimes drop a ball. I don't know that we have yet this particular session, but that maybe gives you a better glimpse into some of the activities that we're dealing with on a daily basis up in Topeka. It's no secret that the revenue picture continues to decline. I reported to you last month that revenues were down $53 million from expectations. We're hearing rumors that we'll be in the $30 million range below expectations this month. That puts the end of the fiscal year, June 30th, around $150 to $200 million below expectations. And let me remind you that we already adjusted the expectations down in November of 2015. Consensus Revenue Estimating Group meets around April 20th or so next month to get a picture of what they think things look like for the end of the fiscal year. And please don't place blame on them. They are doing the best that they can with a historic process that is no longer, they cannot base it on history because we don't know what to expect when you're not collecting certain amounts of revenue that you always have or when there are unpredictable things in the economy such as oil and gas values. And all of those items combined together have contributed to why we are at the point where we are given the budget. You would think that given the dire situation of the finances of the state, we would be entirely focused on dealing with that. That doesn't seem to be the case. This week alone, we spent 3 hours in the House debating Common Core standards, 5 hours in the Senate on a tax lid bill from that deals with the tax lid that was passed last year. We had a lengthy debate in the Senate on how to impeach Kansas Supreme Court justices. So we really are dealing with the important things that need to be fixed before legislators go home. They are going home today. In fact, the Senate went home around 4:18, give or take a few minutes. And the House was finishing up their business to pass the adjournment resolution to head home until April 27th. They adjusted their calendar to be done a little early the first turnaround. They're done about a week early on this particular turnaround or this first adjournment, and they'll return around April 27th to begin what is traditionally called the veto session. It's not really a veto session anymore. It's the legislative session where we do all of the business that we should have been doing the first 3 months in the last couple of weeks of the session. And so we'll do that after the consensus revenue estimates come in. We have to figure out where the money is going to come from. The plan was leaked earlier that it would likely come from securitizing tobacco settlement monies. It's a one-time cash infusion. It's the easy way out. It gets people out of town. The alternative is likely to significantly cut agencies across the state. There's a number of ways that can be done, but we're already in dire straits, whether it's some of the facilities such as Osawatomie or Larned or our corrections system. They are all in serious situations in this state. They just passed a education finance bill. Please don't ask me questions about it because I've been spending time in other areas and it came about quickly and I haven't been following the details of this particular plan. It is designed to meet the criteria established by the court on equity. We'll find out soon enough if it does do that. I don't believe that there's a lot of new cash infused into the plan. According to reports that I've read, no district loses significant money, some gain money. I'm still trying to figure out how that works. And we will find out. I don't know if the court will have the opportunity to review that before the end of when we're supposed to be getting out of here, if there will be a special session at some point during the summer or not. Keep in mind, all 165 of the elected folks in Topeka will be running for office this summer, this fall. I would like to touch on a few bills that are specific to either this college or to the community college sector, and I did not have the time or opportunity to include them in the report that you have before you, and so I'll just hit on those briefly, and if you have questions, I'd be pleased to try to answer them. The first one is a bill that we started out with last year. Last year, I think it was Senate Bill 93. It was the bill to include Johnson County Community College into the GED Accelerator Program. That bill made its way through the process essentially and found itself on general orders in the House last year, where it died because we couldn't get it above the line and couldn't get it. There were no bills available to conference on in that particular arena. I am pleased to report that as of this afternoon, there was agreement in the House and Senate Education Conference to include House Bill 2483, which contains the same provisions for that, including JCCC into the GED Accelerator Program with the other 18 community colleges across the state of Kansas. That's the good news. It's a win. The bad news is that particular fund is one that the governor's been sweeping when we've been making cuts to higher education. So we'll see where it goes from here, but at least we're on the same playing field now with our peer institutions. Senate Bill 136, which is formerly House Bill 2531, the due process bill, had a hearing, or it was worked, I should say, had a hearing earlier in February. The bill was worked on March 14th in a process that we call gut and go. That's taking a bill that has some other criteria or something else in it, and we remove that criteria and put the contents of another bill into it and then pass it out. That bill was passed out, is on general orders in the House, has not been worked. The House is adjourned. It's going to take a special rule or some form of a conference to keep that alive at this point. But essentially the issue, I couldn't even find it on the general orders, and that was after a quick scan and glance, but it is supposed to be listed on general orders in the House. Another bill that had some action this week on the Senate floor is Senate Bill 469. That's a bill that deals with union representation. An amendment was made on the Senate floor to require a vote every 3 years by faculty to make the determination of who they want representing them. That bill was worked and passed by the Senate. Again, it was not placed into a House bill. It'll make its way over to the House, but at this point I'm not sure where that bill goes because we're done with the regular portion of the session. You have to invoke special rules once issues are essentially deemed dead. Two other bills that we've been following that have very close ties to the community college sector are Senate Bill 420. That's a bill that dealt with service areas for state institutions, state universities. They would need to seek permission from a community college CEO if they wanted to offer courses in a community college service area. There were a number of things that were probably going to happen to that bill, and it likely would not have looked like it did after it was originally introduced. That happens a lot in Topeka. That bill is dead for the session and is going nowhere, as is the next bill that I'm going to talk about, Senate Bill 451, which was a merger between Wichita Area Technical College and Wichita State University. You might think, why would you care about that? We're over here in Johnson County. There's always implications in legislation that you have to be aware of, and that one had a funding stream that could have taken away dollars from other community college institutions in the career and tech ed arena. The bill became controversial in a number of other areas, and essentially the folks who were working on that merger gave up and disbanded their support for that bill for the rest of the session. So it's going nowhere either. Another interesting bill that is something that we need to keep our eye on, and there's not going to be a whole lot of changes to CAPERS legislation this year. Although you are aware that the governor has the authority with the budget passed by the legislature to withhold the final payment to Capers this year, which is about $100 million. That will certainly be used to fill some of the hole that we have in the state budget. But there has been an attempt over the past several years to include a provision that adjusts the final average salary for folks who participate or who are members of Capers. And that amendment has failed each and every year through multiple attempts, and again, it has this year through multiple attempts. However, there is a component that was added to House Bill 2724, which deals with collecting data on certain plans in the Capers system. And the target is to find people that might have a high payout in the end, or that might have a high final average salary based on the last 2 or 3 years of their employment at a particular entity. And so we are going to continue to watch that. It is not a final average salary bill, but it's something that could lead to that in future years, and we'll keep our eyes on that. The final bill then is a bill that was brought by a resident in Lawrence who is a former military service member, and it has to do with the military service tuition issue. The person moved back to Kansas so his child could attend high school and then ultimately attend college here. And there are certain criteria that are very strict and followed very closely that deal with in-state tuition for students. This was a glitch apparently in a bill that was passed a year or two ago for military veterans or service members. And so this bill was to tweak that provision so that it would not impact future families that might either base out of Kansas or be here temporarily in Kansas while they have students in post-secondary education. The threat was, and always is when you have bills like that, to repeal the Undocumented Immigrant Student Tuition Act, which was passed, I believe, in 2006. And our institution typically has the highest number of students participating in that program. I think we're around 240 students throughout the entire post-secondary system. And so that is something that we just watch because we enforce the law that is in place. And that amendment did not go on that bill either in committee or during floor debate. And so I just wanted to bring you up to speed on those items. That kind of captures the higher education bills that are out there. There's a bunch of stuff out there, but those are the ones that pertain to our daily activities on campus here.
The last allotment by the governor, how much of that was taken out of higher education, the Regents institutions as opposed to community colleges? Like 17 million?
I'll go with your number. I don't do math in public.
Okay. So,
I believe that 17
President.
million came out of the higher ed, but community colleges are usually held harmless by the governor and by the legislature.
There was a small amount, I believe, though, through some of those CTE dollars.
Okay.
CTE being career and technical education.
Correct.
Questions? First, Dr. Cook and then Trustee Cook, or Trustee Cross.
2 areas. What does it mean to securitize the tobacco settlement dollars? What does that actually mean?
Bond those dollars out and take the lump sum cash.
And what would that impact?
It would impact early childhood education and development programs throughout the state. That money is typically through a master settlement agreement, goes to the children's initiatives. I can't remember the name of it. It's not a cabinet, but it funds early childhood education programs.
And how much are we talking about?
A lot.
I realize it varies from year to year, but.
A lot. Lots of commas and lots of decimals.
Historically, how did the legislature determine the length of the general session? How was that determined?
Well, the calendar is established by leadership at the beginning of the year, and it's a 90-day session set by the Constitution. And
So it's constitutional that it's 90
I believe that
days?
it is. I'm looking at our former legislator who's
And originally,
questioning
that was determined to be the appropriate amount of time to do business, is that correct?
Well, it talked about changing it, the off-budget years to a 60-day?
They've talked about doing
They
a,
haven't talked about that in the context
is-
of a constitutional amendment.
you're right, you're correct.
So I don't think.
So I guess what I'm leading up to is somebody
you're
along
correct.
the way made a decision that 90 days was appropriate. What's the daily cost of the extended or veto session, as we call it? What's the daily cost for them to meet?
Well, once they go beyond their 90 days, there's a per diem and it's a per diem and a salary that the legislators make, and it's individually, it's minimal. I think it's about $45,000 a day, $50,000 a day.
And referring to the rules you displayed, who would follow the rule to say, you know what, you can meet as long as you want, but you're not going to be paid a per diem, and there'll be no cost to the taxpayer for the extended session?
There are several legislators that take the option of not collecting their pay when they exceed the 90-day session.
Okay, thank you.
Trustee Cross.
Mr. Carter, you're ever the diplomat. Many took the money, right? I appreciate your ability to put words and language to a difficult process, and I share your sentiment in struggling with this legislature, but then I'm reminded of President Reagan's phrase that in all this mess, there's got to be a pony somewhere. But that passes, so. What do you mean that Osawatomie and institutions like Larned are in trouble?
Well, some of them have lost their federal Medicaid funding. There are staffing issues at both of those facilities, and there are financial commitments that need to be made by the state for those facilities, for those living in those facilities.
The federal government has pulled, I may botch this, but they pulled the Medicare, Medicaid
Certification.
certification for those institutions.
That's my
That means that
understanding.
the federal government doesn't want to pay to help subsidize those institutions because the state has failed its commitment to those institutions.
That is my understanding.
Okay. Thank you, Mr. Carter.
Anybody else before I go to the president? Dr. Sopcich?
I just want to add a few things, Dick. You talked about Senate Bill 451 and put it in the context of the WSU-WOTC merger. There was another new section in that piece of legislation that would have eliminated the post-secondary technical authority. Post-secondary technical authority operates under the Board of Regents, and it covers a career in technical education, or CTE. It would have replaced that body with a committee of the presidents from the 19 community colleges and the technical colleges, which would have meant a committee of 25 people. That committee would have had authority over curriculum, over designation of tiered and non-tiered classes, and also allocation of resources. That meant this college would have been subjected to a majority vote by those different schools, by all the schools across Kansas. Probably not in our best interest. So we worked really hard. I'd like to thank Dick for his work on that one. It was critical. Also on 420, which would have eliminated service areas, that would change the landscape of higher ed in Kansas as we know it today. We worked really hard. I'd like to thank Tanya for her input on that. We were able to make some inserts into that piece of legislation, and it wasn't easy. So those were two bills that we worked pretty hard on to try to manage it all. So thank you, Dick and Tanya, for your efforts on those two bills.
Dick, I don't know if I have any real questions, but I think the notion now that we're March 24th and we have until April 27th for anybody in this room or anybody watching on television to talk to your legislator and ask them questions and suggest to them solutions for our problems in Kansas. This legislature passed a tax bill in 2012 that I don't think anybody didn't hope would work, because it'd be great if we lowered everybody's taxes and we still had more money. It's clear that it hasn't worked. The pass-through income exemption for LLCs and sub-S's is about, as I understand it, about $250 million a year that is estimated to be lost, that could be put back on this session with some leadership. Although the governor has said he would veto it, I would like to put it on his desk and have him veto it, so that we don't have to cut higher education more, so that we don't have to steal future revenue stream from the tobacco settlement that was supposed to go to children's funding and use it one time this year. so we don't have to continue to bond KDOT, and the last bond issue for KDOT is a 10-year interest-only bond, which means you have a balloon payment 10 years from now that legislature and the taxpayers then will have to worry about, so that we don't have to borrow $1.5 billion for capers and put it in the stock market and hope we do better in the stock market than the bond interest rate, so that we don't have to eliminate the maintenance budget essentially for KDOT. So that we don't have to cripple local governments by putting a tax lid on them as a distraction so Topeka can tell local governments how to do their business. Chairman Ed Eilert of the County Commission gave his state of the county address on Tuesday, and pointed out that in 2054, 1/3 of the population of Kansas is projected to be in Johnson County. And yet the tax lid that is currently under consideration makes no consideration for population increase. You can't spend more than you spent last year plus CPI, even if you grow 10,000 people a year, which is what Johnson County will do. So I guess what I would ask everybody here to do, whether you're in this room or you're listening on the stream, is to think about calling your legislators and ask them about the debt that Kansas is in. And when they talk to you about anything to do with the federal government and spending out of control and placing burdens on future generations, ask them why they're doing that in Kansas. Because we have to balance our budget, but all that means is we can make payments on the debt this year. And the thought that we have bonded hundreds of millions of dollars in KDOT and we're only going to pay interest for 10 years. And then when the big amount comes due, somebody else is going to have to worry about it. If that doesn't scare Kansans, it should. So this is a time, we've got 33 days to talk to people and suggest that maybe when they picked winners by saying some Kansans don't have to pay any income tax, maybe they ought to revisit that so that other Kansans don't have to get penalized by cuts or future debt that my kids, if they move back to Kansas, will have to pay. It's critical that we talk to legislators now. And it's not just about Johnson County Community College, it's about Johnson County community. And we have things at risk across this community in every city and at the county that the legislature has put at risk instead of taking care of its own fiscal house. So I also want to thank you, and I want to congratulate you, and I want to put another pitch in for the fact that if local governments can't have their own government affairs person in Topeka, we would never know what's going on. In this legislature, you would not know because there's not a hearing, or it's scheduled tomorrow morning, or there's a gut and go on a bill that you never even knew, nobody even saw the language before, or these special rules are invoked on a more frequent basis than ever before. So I will defend completely the right of a public entity that is being targeted by the legislature to run things the way they do in Topeka, that we're entitled to have Dick Carter or somebody else up there watching out for Johnson County Community College. I'm not fired up at all about this, but I hope the rest of you are.
Thank you.
Stephanie.
Amen.
Thank you, Dick. Appreciate your time. And we know you'll still be active in this because things happen during the recess period. Next item is committee reports and recommendations. First report is collegial steering. Trustee Sharp and I met with members of the faculty and members of the administration on Tuesday for our monthly collegial steering meeting. We spent most of the time on curriculum and academic quality and trying to understand those terms and how we use them, how we develop curriculum to make sure it's relevant, how we measure academic quality in terms of faculty at the front of the room, technology, classrooms, and all those other items. Dr. Larson gave a brief report. We didn't give her really enough time on the facilities master plan to talk about how we can do things better on campus with our physical infrastructure and where we locate people and how we make that more efficient. Some interesting discussion about things like should all faculty in English, for instance, be in the same pod, or is it better to have them scattered around so they're an integrated part of the community? Fascinating judgment calls that have been around academia for a long time, and I doubt that we solved them on Tuesday, but we at least had a discussion about them. I'd be happy to answer any questions about collegial steering or hear Trustee Sharp's comments. Next item is the Human Resources Committee. Trustee Ingram, you have the job of going through all of our annual employee benefit and insurance packages, which is one of the most exciting times of the entire year. The floor is yours.
Thank you. The Human Resources Committee met on March the 7th, 2016. Jerry Zimmerman presented an overview of the benefit renewal recommendations for fiscal year 2017. I propose that we group the first 10 and consider them together as they do not reflect material changes from the current year. So the recommendations include the following. Dental insurance. Cigna and Delta Dental insurance premiums are in the final year of their current contract with no increase in premiums. Vision insurance. Coverage remains with VSP following an RFP process with a 2-year contract extension. Premiums are employee pay all and are increasing approximately 12%. Life insurance and short-term disability coverage. This is the final year of the current contract with a standard life insurance company, and there is no increase in premiums. Employee benefit consulting services. This is the second year of a 5-year contract with Holmes Murphy. Again, there is no increase in fees, and total expenditures are not to exceed $38,400. Flexible spending account administration. We are in the final year of a 3-year contract with ASI Flex. There is no increase in fees, and total expenditures are not to exceed $17,000. The Employee Assistance Plan, we're in the second year of a 5-year contract with ComPsych Resources. There is no increase in fees. The annual subscriber rate is $18.24 per benefit eligible participant. Employer benefit funding, the flex credits for Group 1 employees remain frozen at $1,108.94 per month for the 8th consecutive year. And finally, the employer 403B contribution remains at 7% or 8%, depending on an employee's start date with Johnson County Community College. So the first recommendation the Human Resources Committee has is that the Board of Trustees accept the college administration's recommendation to authorize the president to negotiate a contract subject to review by college council for the provision of dental, vision, life insurance, short-term disability coverage, benefit consulting services, flexible spending account administration, and the employee assistance plan, and authorize 403B plan contributions and flex benefit funding for the dates and rates listed in recommendations 1 through 9 on pages 1 through 5 of the March 2016 board packet.
Perfect. Is there a second?
Second.
Any questions? And I think I misled Trustee Ingram earlier today when we emailed about how I thought we had to take each of those individually. I'm pleased to learn that we can take them as a group rather than go through each of them individually.
Sure.
All right, is there any discussion? If not, all in favor say yes.
Yes.
All opposed, no. Motion carries unanimously. Trustee Lindstrom and I had a discussion last week, and there's this kind of tradition of saying aye or nay, and we never say that any other time in society, so we're going to try to go to yes or no. How about that?
I think it's
Major reform.
Yes.
Nay. All right. Move on to the next item. Trustee Ingram, thank you.
all right. The next recommendation is for medical insurance and includes the following for consideration. Medical insurance. Coverage remains with Blue Cross and Blue Shield of Kansas City following an RFP process, adding 2 new Blue Cross narrow network medical options. The first one is Blue Select Plus PPO, and the second is Blue Select Plus HDHP. Premiums are increasing approximately 10% per month to Blue Cross for the traditional HMO, PPO, and HDHP coverages, and decreasing approximately 3% per month for the Blue Select Plus options versus the 2015-2016 plan year rates. Plan design changes were recommended to bring the initial increase of 12% down to 10%. The recommendation of the Human Resources Committee is that the Board of Trustees accept the college administration's recommendation to authorize the president to negotiate a contract subject to review by college council for the provision of the employee group medical insurance with BCBS, KC, Blue Cross Blue Shield, Kansas City, for a period beginning June 1, 2016 through May 31st, 2017, at the rates listed in recommendation number 10 on pages 5 to 6 of the March 2016 board packet.
Second. Did you move?
Any questions? Yes, Dr. Cook.
What percent of employees do we have in each group? Between the Select Plus and the Select, do we know?
Basically, what number of employees are subject to the 10% increase is what you're
Correct.
looking for. Do we have anybody here? I mean, Judy's not here today.
I think Jerry.
Jerry.
Zimmerman.
Dr. Cook, this is the first year that we'll offer the Blue Select, so there's nobody in those programs right now. Approximately 85% of our employees currently choose whether they're Group 1 or Group 2 to participate in the HMO, and the rest of the people are in our PPO, with about 3 or 4% of our folks currently in a high deductible health plan. As you may recall, the Group 2 people get the high deductible health plan at no cost. And thank you, appreciate it. Sure.
Is there an estimate on the number of people that might choose the Blue Select? I assume Blue Cross and Blue Shield has some actuarial data on that.
Not at this point, Greg, but the interesting part about it is you see that the premiums will be lower for all of our participants in those two plans next year. But when they say limited network, it's literally that. There are about 3,000 providers, but only 9 hospitals that you can see. And while in a traditional PPO, you have both an in-network and out-of-network option, with the Blue Select PPO, the out-of-network option is basically you don't get anything reimbursed. And so if you take the Blue Select plus PPO, you're going to use the providers in the greater Kansas City area, or you're not going to get any coverage.
So that the bottom line, I think, as we've worried about budgets for the last several years, is to get the traditional plan that our folks have accepted and believed is good for their families, it's a 10% increase.
Yes, sir, that's correct.
And the plan was modified, which I assume means less attractive in some manner in order to get the increase down to 10% instead of 12%.
Through the work of the benefit committee here in the college, exactly right. For the first time in 5 years, we're making some minor changes to the provisions in what our traditional HMO and PPO plans.
And I'm not blaming anybody, everybody's having to do this, but that higher cost of health insurance affects everything we try to do here. So and it affects every employee if your copay goes up or your deductible goes up, so that we can keep the rate only going up 10%. It's just something we'll continue to factor in, and I know in the budget considerations that the management committee will take the first shot at, that will be there. So if there are no other questions or discussion, all in favor of the motion signify by saying yes.
Yes.
Opposed, no. Motion carries unanimously. Next.
The next recommendation is to offer the retirement incentive to eligible employees in fiscal year 2017. There are approximately 120 eligible employees, and the program will have the same benefits offered last year, The recommendation, it is the recommendation of the college administration that the Board of Trustees authorize a retirement incentive program for full-time benefit-eligible staff members during the fiscal year July 1, 2016 to June 30th, 2017, where the staff member meets the full benefit eligibility requirements with the Kansas Public Employees Retirement System, KPERS, and has a minimum of 15 years of full-time service at the college. The elements of the retirement incentive are listed in recommendation number 11 on pages 6 through 7 of the March 2016 board packet.
Second.
It's been moved and seconded to adopt the motion on the retirement incentive program. Are there any questions? We talked when we adopted this last year for the first year of a 2-year plan. I thought we had a cap on it. There's no language about a cap on how many people. Is that built in here somehow?
Of course, we estimated a budget amount
Right.
based on the number of eligible people. I believe, and I'm looking to Becky or Jerry, I mean, ultimately, it is an application and approval process, correct?
Yes, absolutely.
So, is there a budget cap, or
Last year, I believe it was 1.8 million.
It was 1.8 million that we budgeted, yes.
Okay, so it's subject to the budget limitation, and
Yes.
I know we talked about if everybody from one department took it, we would have to make some different calls because that department needs to function. Okay. Might be an appropriate place to mention that Capers is another area under attack by the legislature. When they tell the governor you don't have to make your $100 million payment or more, that hurts our actuarial process in Capers. If the stock market performs, maybe we'll get our million, we'll be able to pay back the $1.5 billion. Dr. Cook.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I think item 3 addresses your concern a little bit. It says may be capped based on disruption to operations, replacement potential, number of requests per department, and transition plan. So while it doesn't specify a financial amount or a numerical number, it does say they can be capped. So I think we cover it there.
No more discussion. All in favor say yes.
Yes.
Opposed, no.
No.
Motion carries unanimously.
Proceed.
Mr. Chairman, that concludes my report.
Thank you very much. The next item on the agenda is Learning Quality Committee. Trustee Cross.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Chair. The Learning Quality Committee met on March 7th, 2016, at 8 a.m. in this room. Trustee Ingram was here. I was on the phone. Andy Anderson, Dennis Arjo, and many others were present that day to hear Christopher M. give a report on his sabbatical that he took in 2015 to create a flipped classroom environment for his math classes. He used student surveys and student success data to focus his work. Professor M. created and compiled short videos and course materials for student learning outside of the classroom. He found the flipped class effectively prepared students for higher level university studies. Further, the flipped class taught students to work more independently, as well to interact more with classmates in small groups, and to use their textbook more effectively. He plans to continue tracking student success data to guide further development of course materials, and the professor shares all his materials with his colleagues in the math program. Dennis Arjo also gave a presentation regarding curricula changes approved at the last Ed Affairs meeting, and in addition to a number of prerequisite course changes, 2 new courses were added, 1 course was deactivated, and numerous course edits from several divisions were approved. All the changes presented will be sent to the full board for approval and can be seen subsequently in the consent agenda portion of this board packet. Also, on March 7th, Clarissa Craig shared that the facility use agreement allows the Healthcare Information Systems Program to use classroom space at the University of Kansas Clinical Research Center, and there are no funds associated with this agreement. Also, Ms. Janice Blancett gave a report regarding requesting approval for a memorandum of understanding as part of a facility use agreement which will run to the end of this calendar year, 2016. There are no out-of-pocket costs for either party, and the agreement allows Johnson County Adult Education to conduct classes for limited or non-English speaking adults with minimal educational skills to enroll in the program and use the library facilities for classes. JCAE actively promotes the use of the Johnson County libraries, and both the Antioch and Gardner locations provide equipment for our instructors to use. It was requested that both of the above agreements be moved forward for full board approval. Details can be found subsequently in the consent agenda portion of this board packet. In January, Tim Laughlin, Video Services Senior Stimulation Specialist, attended a Society for Simulation and Healthcare conference in San Diego, California. The college is one of 10 schools from across the country that participated in a National Council of State Boards of Nursing study and were invited to make a presentation. Tim's presentation demonstrated how the Simulation Center provides effective lifelike experiences in nursing education. There was also a report on workload committee report by, and I always mispronounce her name, Sheila Donetsky, pardon me, Dean of Science and Mathematics. Sheila reported on behalf of the workload task force assigned to evaluate the calculation of lab workload. A rubric was shared that is intended to define the low, medium, and high amounts of work that go into the lab class presentation. Sheila noted the number of very different labs offered at the college made assessing lab workload challenging, and in the fall semester, labs will be reviewed using the rubric in an effort to validate its effectiveness. The outliers, the labs scoring highest and lowest on the rubric will be reviewed first, and the task force expects that some workload adjustments may be suggested by the application of the rubric. Mr. Andy Anderson distributed a handout highlighting the timeline the college will follow as it moves forward, bringing faculty credentials into HLC compliance. He focused especially on developing communication with the high school faculty teaching College Now courses to make sure that they meet the college's credential guidelines. HLC requires that the faculty in concurrent enrollment partnerships possess the same minimum credentials as do the college's regular faculty. The HLC accreditation visit to JCCC is scheduled for April of 2018. Assessment of College Now faculty credentials is to be completed by March 21st, 2016, which just passed, and the faculty and their administrators will be formally notified regarding the status of their credentials. To continue working past September 1st, 2017, all faculty who do not have the appropriate credentials must have a formal plan in place that is designed to bring them into HLC compliance. The KUE and the college representatives recently met, and the KUE has offered to explore the feasibility of providing courses that will help our faculty earn their credentials. Mr. Anderson also gave a presentation that shared that the Compass placement test will be placed by the AccuPlacer tests in the fall of 2016. The Board of Regents Committee has suggested placement cut scores, which the college's faculty are now reviewing. One of the anticipated benefits of the AccuPlacer is that beginning in spring of 2017, the college may be able to offer placement testing off-site. Andy will provide further updates when they become available. Emily Bierman gave a presentation. She's the General Manager of Performing Arts, presented the 2016-17 Performing Arts Series schedule of events, which follows in the board packet here from page 11 and 12, I believe. Ms. Bierman noted that the college's instructional programs also benefit from the series through various collaborations with visiting artists. Last year's 25th anniversary activities led to season ticket sales being up 25% and overall ticket sales up 40%. The production by the Blue Man Group sold 5,800 tickets, and according to audience online surveys, 38% of those tickets were sold to first-time JCCC ticket buyers. As a part of the upcoming theater renovations, a Take Seat campaign will be held this year. In exchange for a $650 donation, sponsors will be awarded the name placard to be placed on the theater seat, and proceeds will benefit the programming in the 2016-17 season and beyond. Therefore, Mr. Chair, it is the recommendation of the Learning Quality Committee that the Board of Trustees accept the administration's recommendation to allow contract negotiations for groups to perform in the Carlson Center during the 2016-17 academic year as shown in the board packet. And I so move.
I'll second.
It's been moved and seconded that we authorize contract negotiations for the groups listed in the packet to perform at the college during 2016-2017. Are there any questions? Emily, do you want to make any comments about the upcoming season and promote it, or do you surely don't want me to do that promotion, but.
I've been enjoying your comments so far, so I think you should.
But if you're not coming to the podium, we'll give you a chance to promote next year's series on campus. My favorite, looking at it, is Thursday, December 8th, the Ukulele Orchestra of Great Britain. I would highly recommend it to anybody that wants to have a fun evening of good music, right?
That's very true.
Okay,
Thank
I'll let you
for
do the
plug.
rest.
I appreciate that. Wow, I'm glad I showed up tonight.
I would not have called on you if you weren't here.
Thank you for inviting me up. We're looking forward to a nice follow-up to this year's 25th anniversary season. As Mr. Cross mentioned, this year has been very successful for us from a ticket sales standpoint and attracting new audiences, and it's been a great variety and diversity of programming. So we're going to continue that next year. with everything from the Blues Brothers to classical music, dance, theater, and all kinds of wonderful music, including the Ukulele Orchestra of Great Britain. We're planning 30 programs for next year, and of course, we'll also make outreach and educational activities available as often as possible with artists that come in as part of the Performing Arts Series, in addition to the arts education performances and events that are planned by Angel Mercier, our Program Director for Arts Education.
Trustee Cross?
Yes, thank you, Mr. Chair. Ms. Bierman, I have to share what some friends of mine on this board invited me to participate in Rotary, and we say good news, some good news to share. My daughter insisted that I accompany her to a presentation of, and I always botch the name, is it Piggy and Gerald? Piggy and Elephant?
Elephant and Piggies.
Elephant and Piggy. Which I guess is a Kennedy Center-related production, I was told or read later. But my daughter had a fabulous time, and I accompanied her class and what is the near anarchy of elementary school kids who had a fabulous time.
Controlled.
Yeah. It was a fabulous time, really, and a wonderful production, and she got to experience one of our productions for the first time. So thank you for everything you do.
Oh, thank you for sharing that. I mean, that's really why we do what we do with the Performing Arts Series, is to offer that opportunity to our young people and to their families and to our community to get them to engage here on the campus with the college and learn more about what we do beyond the Performing Arts Series. So thank you for being here for that. It's great.
Thank you.
Emily, what is our relationship with the Kennedy Center?
Our arts education program has been named a partner in education for the Kennedy Center. So there are about 100 programs nationwide that are part of that program. We are the only one in Kansas. Usually what that means is that a performing arts presenting organization like the Performing Arts Series here at the college partners with a school district, and they engage in professional development for teachers. So the Shawnee Mission School District is our partner in that. We work with Debbie Allen, who's on the staff there, and we train teachers to take arts into the classroom and use it as arts integration. So that means they're not just music teachers or visual arts teachers, they're math teachers and history teachers and English teachers that use the performing arts to engage students in other topics across the spectrum of curriculum every year.
Great. Thank
So,
you.
you're
Look
welcome.
forward to another great year.
Thank you.
I love the fact 38% of the Blue Man tickets were first-time buyers.
Yes.
Because I think they will be back. They will realize it's a great place to come for performing arts.
Yes, thank you.
Trustee?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Question regarding the report for Andy Anderson.
Well, let's vote on this motion.
Oh, yeah, okay.
I'd interrupted it to bring Emily up. All in favor of the contract negotiations for next year's Performing Arts Series, please signify by saying yes.
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 Opposed, no. Motion carries unanimously. Now, Dr. Cook,
Thank you, sorry for that interruption.
I want to make sure I didn't forget.
Andy, regarding the Higher Learning Commission credential,
Right.
is it the public schools administration that's responsible to see that the high school faculty have that credential, or the college?
We will
administration?
be sending out, we have completed the audit. We'll be sending a list to each of the districts and to the principals, the faculty that'll be affected. That letter will actually go out tomorrow. And it will be up to the college deans and liaisons that we have with those faculty to meet with them and make sure those plans are, if they need to do additional work, that the plan is made and we have to follow through on it. It's really on us to monitor that and make sure it's done. So we keep all those faculty files, all their credentials are on file with us. Obviously, we communicate with the administration in the districts. I mean, we don't just handle it privately with the faculty, we include everyone.
So
But the
then-
monitoring is on us to
So
do.
then we're in a position to say that Jerry Cook cannot teach a College Now course at the Ajax High School, not the school superintendent?
Absolutely.
Okay, thank you.
In fact, HLC requires that we be the one that says that.
Mr. President?
Trustee Cross mentioned the sabbatical presentation by Christopher M., Professor M. I wish all the trustees could be a part of those viewings because these sabbatical presentations have been really very good and clearly the outcome after a sabbatical is going to benefit our students and work toward their success. So thank you for supporting that program. They've been terrific presentations.
Which leads me to the question, are we not requiring all people on sabbatical to give that
Oh,
kind of
yes.
report?
Yeah, and they're kind of being spaced out one
They've
by
been
one.
spaced out throughout the year. We have 1 or 2 at each session.
Thank you.
And I know just last about a year ago when we discussed that. I think one of the things we talked about was trying to find a way to record, to video those. I know we don't video our committee meetings, but find a way to record those and put them up on our website, because I think it would be wonderful learning experience for other faculty, for other members of the board that aren't on learning quality to see those. So maybe we can find a way to do that.
We are developing kind of an archive where those presentations are being preserved, so that you'll be able to see them.
Okay.
Mr. Chair,
Yes.
I fully concur with you. We do disagree, but often I find myself concurring with you. Specifically, and I don't mean to single out anybody except simply highlight in anecdotal fashion, Sean Daly, Professor Sean Daly gave a wonderful presentation, I don't know, 2-3 months ago, maybe longer, about his work on Native American tribal lands and preparing, and I believe working with the students while they're attending college, and the difficult cultural challenges they have in approaching that process, the crab in the bucket phenomenon that they experience. Frankly, I think a lot of it is, immensely important to the social fabric of our society, but promotes our college as a leader in innovation and research, and I think Trustee Stewart's spotlight and flashlight that he shined on this process is wonderful. So I appreciate that, and I just want to comment.
Yeah, I think the discussion then was not that sabbatical program isn't good or isn't necessary or isn't appropriate. It's try to find ways to better share it beyond that individual faculty member and the students that they touch to other faculty and beyond even their curriculum, because the Native American, that's a population of students we can help serve if there's a better understanding on this campus of how that works. The Higher Learning Commission discussion we had, I just want to point out, we have mandates. People tell us what to do, whether it's federal government or the state government. The Higher Learning Commission accredits us, and they tell us what to do, and sometimes we don't like it. And I don't know whether it's right or wrong, but the effort to make sure all of our faculty have the credentials that the Higher Learning Commission demands has been a lot of work. It's caused anxiety. I understand we're trying to help find ways to make sure if a faculty member is short of a class or whatever that would make their credentials, that we help them find that. So it's never an easy task when somebody tells you you have to do it. I appreciate, Andy, your leadership on that, and I know the Faculty Association and Faculty Senate have been involved as well.
Mr. Chair, just briefly. if I
Sure.
may. Mr. Anderson, the HLC helps, not helps, they do demand a lot of us. They require that we do this. Why? Why do they make the demands on us?
Well, first of all our federal dollars, Pell Grant, all the grants for students to qualify for federal funding, we have to be an accredited institution. So from a very pragmatic standpoint, that's one leverage that is there. For the college to be accredited, we have to submit our stuff to our accrediting agency, and the Higher Learning Commission used to be known as the North Central Association, is the accrediting body for, it's obviously the Midwest region of the United States. So they do all 2-year technical schools, 4-year schools that are accredited. And they set the credentials that they expect us to meet in order to be accredited. The intention, of course, is good. We don't want, charlatans,
And I'll cut you off there if I may. I thank you for that. You articulate that better than I do. Everybody here knows that. Every month, I'm not kidding, 2 to 3 people come up to me and say they saw me on TV. So that's anecdotally walking around what I hear, so I thank you for sharing that, just so our wider audience knows. That's why we got to put up with that pain, to have people tell us what to do.
Any other questions for Learning Quality Committee and Trustee Cross?
And that concludes my report, Mr. Chair.
Beautiful. All right, we'll let you do the Management Committee report then.
Yes, Mr. Chair. The Management Committee met at 8 a.m. Wednesday, March 2nd, here in this room. Trustee Lindstrom and I were here. The chair of the Management Committee was noticeably absent and missed, Trustee Cook. The information related to the management meeting begins on page 15 and runs through page 25 of the board packet, and we have 4 recommendations this evening. Mr. Chair, to present based on bids or requests for proposals. The first is for the renewal of the college's Microsoft agreement. The purpose of this RFP was to establish an annual Microsoft enrollment for education solution agreement. This license agreement allows all college computers and servers to have the latest version of Microsoft applications. On April 17, 2014, the Board of Trustees approved the establishment of an annual contract with GovConnection, Inc. For an initial term of 1 year, with the option to renew for 2 additional years in 1-year increments. Upon the approval of both parties, the renewal is for the period of April 1st, 2016 through March 31st, 2017, and represents the second of 2 annual renewal options. Therefore, Mr. Chair, it is the recommendation of the Management Committee that the Board of Trustees accept the recommendation of the college administration to approve the renewal of the annual contract for Microsoft Enrollment for Education Solution with GovConnection, Inc. in the amount of $200,975.71, and I will make that motion.
Second.
It's been moved and seconded to accept the Management Committee and the administration's recommendation to approve the renewal of the Microsoft Enrollment for Education Solution contract with GovConnection, Inc. Are there any questions, or is there any discussion? Any discussion? If not, all in favor say yes.
Yes.
Opposed, no. Motion carried.
Mr. Chair, the next bid is for the Nerman Museum of Contemporary Art and Carlson Center Glazing. The purpose of this bid is to contract for the replacement of 4 large spandrel windows in the Nerman Museum of Contemporary Art and a skylight in the Carlson Center. Mr. Chair, it is the recommendation of the Management Committee that the Board of Trustees accept the recommendation of the college administration to approve the low bid of $229,273 from W. Carter and Associates Glazing, plus an additional $22,927 to allow for contingencies for possible unforeseen costs that Trustee Cook always talks about, for the total expenditure not to exceed $252,200 for the Nerman Museum of Contemporary Art and Carlson Center Glazing, and I'll make that motion.
Second.
Been moved and seconded to approve the contract, the low bid. Is there any discussion?
Just to drive home the point, as one of the newer trustees, every time now I read a proposal for money, I cannot get Trustee Cook's voice out of my head about this is what it costs now, but what's it going to cost later? And I can't get that out of my head, and I wanted to share with this group.
It's kind of depressing, isn't it?
It's like, okay, how much?
I'm kidding, Trustee Cook, of course. All in favor say yes.
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 Opposed, no. Motion carries unanimously.
Our third recommendation, Mr. Chair, is for the Yardley Hall seat reupholstery and repairs. The purpose of this bid is to contract for the reupholstering of the seats and the replacing of end caps and aisle lights in Yardley Hall and the Polsky Theater. This project represents one important component of refurbishments planned in the Carlson Center performance spaces over the summer to come. It is therefore, Mr. President, the recommendation of the Management Committee that the Board of Trustees accept the recommendation of the college administration to approve the lowest acceptable bid in the amount not to exceed $277,761 from Mid-State School Equipment, plus an additional $13,800 to allow for contingencies for possible unforeseen costs, for a total expenditure not to exceed $291,649 for Yardley Hall seat reupholstery and repairs, and I will make that motion.
Second.
It's been moved and seconded to approve the contract for the bid for reupholstery in in Yardley Hall. Mitch, we sent out 6 requests. We got 2 people that responded, only one of which met the bid specifications, and it was higher than the estimate. How do we know this is in the ballpark? Is there a way to?
Well, we worked obviously with the architect to develop the specifications and the estimate. And this is a very unique project, so I think just coming up with an estimate is somewhat difficult to begin with. So it was based on what the architect had given us.
Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Any further discussion? If not, all in favor say yes.
Yes.
Opposed, no.
The final recommendation.
Carries unanimously.
final recommendation is for the LED light fixture upgrades. The purpose of this bid is to contract for energy-saving lighting retrofits and upgrades throughout the campus buildings. The scope includes installing new LED fixtures, sensor switches, and LED lamp upgrades in 17 buildings on the main campus. It is therefore, Mr. Chair, the recommendation of the Management Committee that the Board of Trustees accept the recommendation of the college administration to approve the low bid of $369,461 from Jinko LLC, plus an additional $30,539 to allow for contingencies for possible unforeseen costs for a total expenditure not to exceed even $400,000 for the LED light fixture upgrades, and I'll make that motion.
Second.
It's been moved and seconded to accept the low bid for LED lighting. Is there any discussion? Trustee Cross.
Just a quick question, if I may ask the chair or trustee Cook or the staff. How do we determine the additional cost allowances for contingencies for unforeseen costs?
Well, I'll defer to Mitch, but I think what we've discussed in the past, Mitch, is we take a certain percent, and some of the work, there are infrastructural issues that we're not aware of at the time that causes that additional cost, but I would defer to you.
Yeah, and actually Rex lead for that pretty much, but it's normally around 10%. In this case, it calculated out to be about 8.3%, which was the budget that we had available for the project.
That's what I suspected. I just didn't ask that question. So, thank you very much. The management.
Okay, I'm sorry. We didn't have, we had a motion and a second on that. Did we approve that? Does anybody remember?
No.
All those in favor say yes.
Yes.
Opposed? No. Motion carried unanimously on the LED lighting. Trustee Cross.
I'm overcaffeinated, Mr. Chair. The Management Committee received several reports. The first was a presentation from Bruce Hartman, Executive Director of the Nerman Museum of Contemporary Art. The presentation included information on the operating budget, fundraising activities, and value of some of the pieces in the museum's permanent collection. Rachel Leertz, Associate Vice President of Financial Services, CFO, provided information about the 2016-17 budget development. A detailed budget report will be made to the Management Committee on April 6th in advance of the annual budget workshop held at the start of the April board meeting. On Thursday, March 3rd, college staff members attended a meeting hosted by Paul Welcome, Johnson County appraiser, who provided information to the college, school districts, and others on property reevaluation for 2016. Information from this meeting will be used to update the college's ad valorem property tax revenue budget figures for the 2016-17 year. Mitch Borchers, Associate Vice President, Business Services, presented the sole source report as well as the summary of awarded bids between $25,000 and $100,000. This summary is on page 16 of the board packet. Rex Hayes, Associate Vice President, Campus Services and Facility Planning, gave a monthly update on capital infrastructure projects, and you can find this report on page 25 of the board packet. I thank you, Mr. Chairman, Board of Trustees, administration, staff. That concludes my report.
Any questions for the Management Committee? If not, thank you, Trustee Cook. We're ready for President's recommendations for action. The first item is the Treasurer's Report, which in Mr. Lindstrom's absence, we will hear from Dr. Cook.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I draw your attention to pages 28 to 42 of your packet for the Treasurer's Report. Specifically on page 28, we have the distribution of the ad valorem tax for period ending January 31. You'll see that we received $44.2 million in the general fund, $167,000 in the special assessment fund, and almost $2.5 in the capital outlay fund for a total disbursement of $46,847,980. We also received state aid payments in January of $10,776,000. With 7.6 being distributed to the general fund and almost 3.2 to the technical education fund. It is the recommendation of the college administration that the Board of Trustees approve the Treasurer's Report for the month of January 2016, subject to audit, and I'll make that motion.
Second.
Been moved and seconded to adopt the Treasurer's Report, subject to audit. Are there any questions or any discussion? Trustee
I
Cook?
would say, to bring the attention of the board, that through January, we're at about 58.3% of the year. And as you look at the revenues and expenditures, it's always good to compare where we are, realizing that certain funds have collections at various times of the year, but at least we're at 58.3% of the year. Thank you. That concludes my report.
All in favor of the motion signify by saying yes.
Yes.
Opposed, no. Motion carries unanimously. Monthly report to the board, Dr. Sopcich.
Thank you, Trustee Musil. We're going to start tonight's report off with a lightning round. So, Dr. Larson.
Well, thank you. You're all aware that the college makes its facilities available for outside rentals to various organizations, but generally we have more than 72 hours' notice to accommodate those requests. A few weeks ago, Dr. Sopcich was contacted on a Sunday evening about whether the Ted Cruz campaign might rent Yardley Hall for a campaign event that Wednesday. There was a rapid and coordinated response by key individuals at the college. Jeff Hoyer and his staff in continuing education did an outstanding job in gathering a team together quickly. Chris Gray and his staff coordinated all media inquiries. Emily Bierman and performing arts staff were on hand, as well as a number of Vol Stars, our volunteers for performing arts. And of course, our police department and emergency preparedness areas were charged with security for this event. Although the campaign staff estimated numbers of attendees based on RSVPs to the campaign website, we didn't know how many people to expect. As it turned out, more than 2,000 people arrived, so filled Yardley Hall, overflowed into Polsky Theater, and overflowed into a classroom in the Carlson Center, a large classroom. Despite the crowd, the event went off without a hitch. We heard numerous comments from campaign staff about our organized, courteous, and professional employees here at the college that made this event possible. So we are all very proud of everyone. I'm sure I've left some people out, but many, many people made this happen quickly, and we'll be ready for 2020. Thank you.
Dr. Larson, has the campaign paid its bill yet?
They have been invoiced. It is not due until, I believe, a week. So
That's great.
we are expecting payment, yes.
Deal.
That report will come next month.
Yes, exactly.
I think it's important to note that we are a public institution supported by public tax dollars, 54% from property taxpayers in Johnson County. And so hosting events like that is part of our mission. It is not part of our, we do not endorse or support people just because they show up here. They provided a disclaimer on materials, but I think it's a wonderful tribute to our mission that we were able to host that, and I thank everybody that's in the room, from Chief to Barbara to everybody that participated in that, Emily in the back, because it had to be an incredible effort to do that in 3 days. So.
If I may, we also received a call from Senator Rubio's campaign, and they were interested in using our facility, but our fashion merchandising program had their annual fashion show, and that definitely took precedent over the senator's campaign.
Mr. Chair, Mr. President.
Yes.
May I comment briefly? I'm thrilled that we're a stop on the presidential campaign. I think it's a testament to how highly thought of we are, and I'll note that both major gubernatorial candidates sought out Johnson County Community College last cycle and had appearances here. So, as I told the League for Innovation 2 years ago, this school somehow finds its way to the forefront of events on the cutting edge or in the public light. I'm deeply proud of that. And I thank the administration and the board for supporting such an event. So.
Mr. Anderson.
Thank you. Over the past couple of weeks, there have been several presentations for the state of the city and the state of the county that I was fortunate enough to attend. And a theme that emerged, and Mayor Gerlach addressed it specifically, was the importance of collaboration in making the county the place that we enjoy living in. It has led me to think and reflect on the number of activities that go on here that serve that mission of collaboration. One that just was brought to my attention today that I wanted to share. I just learned that the college, Johnson County Community College, will host the Shawnee Mission School District Sustainability Planning Day, which is on March 30th. It will involve over 80 students, faculty, and staff from the Shawnee Mission School District, as well as representatives from Johnson County government and the city commissions of Merriam, Overland Park, and Prairie Village. The college's Christy Howell, who's in our sustainability program, will be the keynote, and along with 2 student interns who are both, interestingly, former Shawnee Mission School District students, Sydney Simpson and Elizabeth Cloud, will be involved in providing insight and developing sustainability efforts with the Shawnee Mission School District that will serve them. The meetings will, and also then obviously the greater community, the meetings will take place in the Galileos Pavilion, and I'm just excited to see the kind of efforts that we're doing, obviously serve to improve the quality of life here across the county. When watching those presentations, the state of the city and so on, and seeing pictures of the emergency medical technicians, the police academy, the arts, all those things that make the quality of life here in Johnson County what it is, we show up in those presentations over and over again, and I just wanted to bring that forward.
Thank you.
Dr. Weber, thanks, Andy.
I like numbers, so I was hoping to kind of share a couple with you tonight. What I have in front of me is what we call our Kansas Higher Ed Enrollment Report, and it's from the Board of Regents, and I wanted to give you just kind of a snapshot of first-time in college students from Johnson County. And so this past fall in 2015, we had 4,922 Johnson County residents who were first time in college. Of them, this is the first time we broke the threshold, we had 2,056. So we had 41.77%. We had over 40% of all first time in college from Johnson County attend JCCC. That was the first time we broke the 40% barrier. Our previous high was about 37.5%. So we were pretty excited about that. That shows the efforts of the college's marketing, communications, recruitment teams, and the word of mouth is our greatest recruiting tool we have, and so the quality of our education obviously speaks well. One of the things I also wanted to share with that is because oftentimes we think first time in college, then those would be students who would maybe directly matriculate from the high school. And of our 2,056, about 72% of them come straight from high school, which means about 28%. So over a quarter of the first time in college students are students who would not have went directly to college from high school. And so we get, in a fall, over 500 students who are at least a year removed from high school decide that they want to go to college and choose our place. And so that's kind of where we run into some of our numbers when we say our average age and our median age type of thing. But I wanted to kind of just take a quick moment to share some of those highlights with you. Our first time in college, just to kind of give you an idea of the representation of our enrollment in a fall semester. Our first time in college would represent about 13% of a fall enrollment. We've talked a lot about how high school represents almost a quarter. It was about 23% of our enrollment. So 52% of our enrollment in a fall are our previous students, or what we call our continuing students. But that was just a quick snapshot of our first-time freshmen from Johnson County Community College. We broke the 40% threshold and thought that was pretty exciting and wanted to share that with you.
The questions, Dr. Cook.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Is it too early to determine what impact our metro rate has had upon enrollment?
On enrollment, yes, because we actually won't even start the enrollment rate until the rate doesn't kick in until fall. But I did get some interesting information at our hospitality luncheon a couple weeks ago. We've got a gal that's worked in our admissions processing for over 2 decades, and I asked her how things were going in the office, and she said the metro rate has significantly increased our apps from Missouri. So it's still early, and so I asked them to run some numbers on it. And we usually run end of term, so we look and say, and we found that about 8.5–9% of our applications come from those metro zip codes in any given semester. And right now, 16% of our applications have come from there. So it's still early, but that, her gut feeling led to kind of running those numbers. And almost twice as high of a percentage rate right now. But-
Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Weber.
Thanks, Randy. And thanks to all of you. Those are great lightning round presentations. Very much appreciated. I'll keep my remarks brief. Last week, first of all, you have the monthly report to the board, 35 pages of all kinds of accomplishments, publications, a lot of exciting activity that's going on our campus. You should really take the time to review these. They're excellent and reflect a lot of hard work throughout the campus. This past week, I was fortunate, along with Dr. Korb, to attend the League for Innovation in the Community College Board meeting. And as you know, the League is a consortium of about 17, 18 community colleges, the top community colleges in the country. And being the president of this college, I serve on the board, and Judy serves in what they call a rep capacity as well. So it's a great opportunity to learn what's going on throughout the country. But additionally, they had their conference attached to that, a conference called Innovations. There were about 1,100 to 1,200 plus attendees attending this conference in Chicago. They're from throughout the country. And it's a great opportunity for different schools to exchange information, best practices, and you kind of get a glimpse of what's going on here. All of this conference activity is focused on student success and institutional approaches toward that common goal of student success. One presentation from a leading community college, and it was Wake Tech in North Carolina. They're about twice the size as we are when it comes to FTEs. They have this approach called applied benchmarking. And every single one of their employees is challenged to identify a school in the country who is demonstrating best practices, and to contact that school and then address some of their challenges by using this benchmarking process. What was really terrific is when they showed up the schools that were contacted the most. And we were among the leaders of all the community colleges and also universities that they reach out to, which speaks really very highly of what's going on this campus with regard to being considered a best practice institution. I also met with a community college president from another league school who informed me that he's going to send 6 teams to several community colleges to look at various aspects of the operation. We'll be one of those colleges because he believes that we do things better than anyone else. That's a tribute to everybody here and to the entire campus to achieve that kind of status. I'd also like to recognize some members of our community who were recognized at the conference. First of all, Dr. Lenore Cook. Lenore is the Dean of Health Professions and Wellness. She was one of 6 people recognized nationally for innovative programs. Dr. Cook is implementing a new associate's degree for public health professionals. And as you can well imagine, in our future, the realm of public health is going to have all kinds of needs and demands. So it's good to see that we're going to be there trying to provide a workforce to assist in meeting those needs. Additionally, the John and Sue Ann Roosh Award, which is dedicated to informing, inspiring, and celebrating innovations in learning, teaching, and staff development and student success was given out. We were very fortunate to have 2 award winners from our campus. Janet Daly, who is a lead instructor in adult education, and Holly Milkewart, an associate professor in English and journalism, were both honored by receiving the Roosh Award. Again, it reflects very well on our college. Another member of our staff that was there presenting was Anna Page. But she, and I just want to take a second to recognize the new leadership team in our honors program in PTK. Anna, Lindsay Welch, and Nellie Schuckman were recently recognized as a 5-star chapter, which maybe that's like a Michelin restaurant ranking, 5 stars, for what they've been able to do with this program. And they've also increased enrollment in this program up 12% versus a year ago, which is a real tribute to their initiative. Another piece of national recognition we've received came in a newsletter produced by the AACC called 21st Century Center, and this recognized our sustainability initiatives. We are a certified green partner. And what that means is that we were recognized by Johnson County government, as one of 7 organizations locally that is providing leading and innovating programs through our multiple environmentally friendly and energy-saving programs that we do here on campus under Dr. Antle's leadership. As you know, we do a lot of great things on our campus. One of the things that I was unaware of till I was putting this together, that we also give 200 tours of these sustainability projects to individuals from the Environmental Protection Agency, elected officials, representatives from other educational institutions, and what's really terrific is that also our own classes will tour some of the sustainability initiatives that we have. So that's terrific. We've become a kind of a nationally recognized model for integrated sustainability. One of the things that happens on campus that's also very exciting is to see high school students and middle school students. And we had some weeks last month that were just absolutely unreal. One of my favorites, and there were several, but I'll recognize one, Beate Pettigrew. She's an associate professor in our drama department. She's also the artistic coordinator and in charge of recruitment for that program, hosted a full day of workshops and performances for 250, that's 250 high school drama students from throughout Johnson County. I have to say it was a very spirited group. When you speak in front of a group like this of high school students and you ask, do you have any questions? Usually the response isn't that overwhelming. In this case, all 250 of those students raised their hands with a question. So it speaks highly for drama students. What I'd like to be able to say is that all of these examples reflect so well on our campus community and the level of attainment and that of the stature that we enjoy nationally. So I'd like to thank everyone on campus for doing what they do to make Johnson County Community College a very special place every day and in every way. So thank you, and that wraps up my report.
Thank you. Questions for Dr. Sopcich?
Mr. President, thank you.
It is impressive to hear the monthly reports and to read the monthly reports about everything that goes on campus in every department in every way. And trying to single out the few that are worthy, I know, is a difficult task. So thank you for that. We'll move on now to old business. Old business this month is, at last month's meeting, we allowed Dr. Drummond to announce that he had submitted his letter of resignation effective June 30th, 2016 from the board. Apparently retirement and travel and family and grandkids is important to him, as we knew. Tonight, the first item of business we need to do is to have a motion to accept his resignation. And if I get that and that passes, then we will talk about the process for identifying a successor, not a replacement, because I don't think we can replace him, but to find a successor. So is there a motion to accept his resignation?
I so move.
Is there a second?
I'll second it.
All right. Any discussion? Dr. Cook.
Mr. Chair, thank you. I had the privilege of coming on the board with Dr. Drummond, and I knew a little bit of his experience, obviously at TLC, but also at the public school system. And he certainly fulfilled that perception I had of him in terms of, do the decisions this college makes over a period of time cause us to be sustainable? Can we look 5 and 10 years down the road and envision what the decision we make today will impact that future? And he's held steadfast to that value system. I really don't like making the motion or voting in favor of this because he certainly has made a huge contribution to this college, both on the front lines and the back decisions that need to be made to make sure we have effective teaching and learning that goes on here every day, and as described in the programs that Dr. Sopcich has just outlined. So it's regrettably that I make the motion. I will support him because I know how much he loves his grandchildren and his family, and after all, parenting and grandparenting are our number one responsibilities. So, Dr. Drummond, thank you for helping us become the board we are. I appreciate it very much.
All those reluctantly in favor say yes.
Yes.
All opposed, no.
No.
Motion carries with Trustee Cross declining to accept the resignation of Dr. Drummond. We have circulated, I believe, to the board the timeline for identifying a successor under the statutory process, or the statute allows this board to appoint a successor for the remainder of Dr. Drummond's term which means that person would run for election in August and November of 2017. I'll go through the timeline for the public and then ask for a motion to approve that. If we have any questions, we can talk with Tanya Wilson, our general counsel, or the president, and I'll try to answer questions. At this meeting, we will accept the resignation and adopt the schedule. Tomorrow, we will publish unofficial notice on the Johnson County Community College website. Next Tuesday, it will officially be published in the Legal Record, our legal newspaper for the college. Applications will then be open until 5 p.m. on April 15th. On Thursday, the 21st of April, each remaining board member will be distributed application materials, including the application and the resume and any other materials from anybody that applies for the position. On April 26th, we will have a special board meeting at 5 p.m., and at that meeting, we will narrow the slate of applicants for interviews. There is no minimum or maximum number for interviews. I think we will have some discussions about what makes sense and how you should narrow it down, but I also think we've historically left it open to the quality of the pool of applicants, whether we have 3 interviews or 5 interviews or some other number. After the 26th, we will narrow that slate on the 26th. On the 27th, those who will be interviewed will be notified, and a letter will be sent to those. Our interviews will be held at a special board meeting. The April 26th meeting will be a special board meeting, 5 o'clock in this room. Thursday, May 5th, we'll have a special board meeting at 4 o'clock to interview the candidates, and then we will select the new trustee by roll call vote. And then on Friday, July 1st, a successful candidate will take office to start the new fiscal year for the college. I think the process was explained in an email to the board, but once we have the interviews, we will then have votes to narrow it down to 2 people and then vote until somebody gets a majority. We have 6 members left, so there is always the possibility that we will split 3 to 3, as I think we did last time. Ultimately, we need to vote and fill that slot. Hopefully, we will do that in the same professional and civil and respectful way we've always done business here. There's at least one city or one county in the area which has been unable to fill a spot for months because they are split evenly, and I hope we don't get to that. Are there questions about that schedule or the process?
To put it on the table, I'll move we adopt the schedule.
Is there a second? Second. Been moved and seconded to adopt the schedule as outlined. Are there any questions or is there any discussion? If not, all in favor say yes.
Yes.
Yes. Opposed, no. Motion carries unanimously. Thank you. Applications will be on the website, so anybody that knows of somebody that's interested or is watching on TV and has somebody they think would be good or is interested themselves, please look at that and see if you're interested in applying. Last time, I think we had about 20 applicants. It was a number, and we narrowed it down. I think we interviewed 4. And so I assume there'll be a good pool of applicants again this time. There's no new business. The next item is report from our board liaisons, and the first one is our Faculty Association President, Ron Palchik. Welcome.
Thank you. Good evening and thank you, Chairman Musil, the Board of Trustees, and President Sopcich for allowing me to speak. I've been informed that some people may want to watch a basketball game tonight, so they said keep it short, so I'm going to try to even do it shorter. First, we're more than halfway through the semester. I'd like to keep you informed of that. And secondly, as for our bylaws for the Faculty Association, we started the nomination process for faculty leadership. The nomination process has been open since March 3rd and will be closed on April the 7th. So far, we have a fine group of faculty nominated by their colleagues to represent the faculty. The last 2 weeks in April, we'll run the election for the Faculty Association officers' positions, and at that May board meeting, you'll be busy that day, I'll have the honor to introduce to you the new president of the Faculty Association. I would like to take a few minutes to publicly thank each of the current Executive Council of the Faculty Association, Vice President Brian Wright, Secretary Dennis Arjo, Treasurer Brett Cooper, UniServe Rep Jeff Anderson, and the past president, Deb Williams. They've been very grateful, helpful to me. Furthermore, I would like to thank the board for welcoming me, showing me support, as well as challenging me to do the best I can for our students, this college, Greg, this college, and our community. And I look forward to spending more time with the students at the college, as well as more time with my family next year and the years to come after that. Please allow me a few minutes to divulge information about my family. I'm really proud of them. I have 2 girls who are in high school. They're very busy with school and school-related activities, cross-country, gymnastics, swim and dive team, debate, forensic, student government, AV club, drama, filming all the home football games and some of the home basketball games at Olathe North High School.
Anything to get out of the house, Ron, right?
Well, yeah, yep.
Not Olathe South?
Nope, they're at Olathe North. We live just north of there. They're not to mention their involvements in academics. They're with college-ready courses, and their first College Now course, pre-calculus. Both of my daughters are in the Olathe North Distinguished Scholars Program. One is in science, and I'm very proud of her, and my other one is in mathematics, and I don't know why I'm really proud of that. But don't get me started on my wife's involvement. Within her 3rd grade class, she teaches in the Olathe School District, as well as her state, her areas that she's involved in state, and to say that, well, she's very, very, very involved, and so am I. And finally, it has been a pleasure to get to know each and every one of you over these last few years. And I know the college is in very good hands with your leadership. You are a fine Board of Education. And it has been an honor to be associated and to work with all of you. Thank you for allowing me to make this report to you, and do you have any questions for me?
Questions for Ron? This isn't your swan song yet.
No.
But you've been very kind with your comments toward us, and I think all of us feel the same way toward you and the faculty association. It is herding cats here sometimes, and I know you feel the same way. And so many of the calls that are made, whether by you or by Ed Affairs or by Faculty Senate or by this board or by the administration, are judgment calls, and that makes them debatable and sometimes controversial. And sometimes they raise a level of anxiety, rightly so. And I appreciate the way you've always approached that and understood that we may have disagreements, but let's figure out only where we disagree and look for the areas of agreement. And that's been appropriate. And I've met your daughters, and they're very impressive. And you know, we're going to look very carefully at whether or not they enroll full-time at Johnson County Community College, the college as we refer to it now. But I know they're going to have their choice of going kind of wherever they want in America. Trustee Cross.
Yes, sir. Thank you, Mr. Chair. Mr. President, I know you have a difficult job, and you have a lot of disparate interests to kind of sew together and form coalitions out of. And I'm reminded of the phrase, and I wish Trustee Lindstrom was here, but we used to always watch the NFL, my father and I, and telling me how every single one of those players on the field was an all-star somewhere. And I think the same could be true for our faculty and how difficult it is to manage those egos and everybody involved. So I do thank you for what you have done this year, and hopefully we can finish out your term strong.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Dr. Cook?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I've had the opportunity to be a school administrator, a board member, and a teacher who headed up a faculty or a staff association. And within that, I think I realize there are issues where we will have differences of opinion and we have potential conflict. And I've often said we should never fear the conflict. We should fear our lack of ability to resolve it. And I think, Ron, you've been fearless in trying to find ways to resolve differences of opinion, whether it's with this board through the process of negotiating contracts, or the process of within your own association, or the process of a group of people with differing viewpoints. And so I really appreciate your, again, fearlessness to find ways to resolve the difference of opinion, and I thank you for your leadership.
Thank you very much. Look
And
forward to
thanks.
seeing you in April.
Okay, thanks, and once again, and have a great night. Go KU.
And K-State, and K-State.
Johnson County Education Research Triangle report would be given by trustee Lindstrom. There has been no meeting since our last board meeting here. The Research Triangle Board meets quarterly, so he would have no report, and I'm pleased to be able to give the same no report. Kansas Association of Community College Trustees, Dr. Cook.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Likewise, the association has not met since our meeting in February. Just to piggyback a little bit on some of Mr. Carter's report on the lobbyists, with 19 colleges, and just as I've said, there's an opportunity for differing viewpoints. And as Mr. Carter expressed some of those legislative issues, I know we have some differing viewpoints on those, but KACCT is trying to resolve those as a group. And our next meeting will be in June, and I'm sure we'll have some discussion regarding the outcomes of the legislative session. So thank you for your patience.
You get to be up next for the Foundation Liaison Report.
Actually, that report is so difficult to make that Trustee Ingram is going to make it.
Perfect. Trustee Ingram.
It's very short, is what he's telling you. The Foundation Executive Committee met on March 24th, 2016, and basically there are some announcements that we would like to share with you. The annual International Dinner will take place on Friday, April 1st. This event benefits scholarships for international and immigrant students, and the theme this year is Taste of the World to celebrate its 10th anniversary. The evening will feature a 4-course meal and live entertainment. The recommendation for the 2016-2017 Foundation Board slate will be presented at the Directors' Meeting, which is coming up this Tuesday, March 29th, and the Executive Committee will meet again on May 10th, followed by the Foundation's annual lunch on May 24th. And that concludes my report.
When is the annual luncheon?
The annual luncheon is on May 24th.
Okay. All right. Thank you. Any questions about Foundation activities? Not. Thank you for that. We are now ready for the consent agenda. The consent agenda is a standard part of our agenda in which we take items that are non-controversial and have been heard by committee levels or otherwise. They're typically considered collectively and in a single motion. Any member of the board may request that a particular item be removed from the consent agenda and considered and debated and voted upon separately. Are there any items on the consent agenda tonight that a board member would like to have removed and debated or discussed separately? If none, do I hear a motion to approve the consent agenda? Been moved? Second? Moved and seconded. All those in favor say yes.
Yes.
Opposed, no. Motion carries unanimously. The last item on our agenda, we are going to have a short executive session, and I would like to entertain a motion to go into executive session for the purpose of discussing consultation with an attorney, which would be deemed privileged in the attorney-client relationship, in order to protect the privilege in the board's communications with its attorney on legal matters, and consultations with the board's bargaining representation in employer-employee negotiations to protect the public interest in negotiating a fair and equitable contract. The session will last no more than 15 minutes, and no action will be taken during the session. We'd like to invite President Sopcich, Dr. Larson, Andy Anderson, Beckley Sentlever, and Tanya Wilson to that session. Do I hear such a motion?
So moved.
Second. It's been moved and seconded to go into executive session for 15 minutes. We will start the executive session at 6:50 p.m. and reconvene in this room no later than 7:05 p.m. I'll note that I know that Trustee Sharp has to leave at 7 o'clock sharp. So if she's not here when we reconvene, you'll understand that case. So all those in favor say yes?
Yes.
Opposed, no?
Nay.
Motion carried. We will convene an executive session at 6:50, which is in approximately 2.5 minutes. Thank you all for coming. You're welcome to stay till we come back into session.
Sorry, guys, I have to relieve us.
Thank you. We have reconvened from executive session. No action was taken during the executive session. There's nothing left on the published agenda other than adjournment. Do I hear a motion to adjourn?
So moved.
Second.
Moved and seconded. All those in favor say yes.
Yes.
Opposed, no. We are adjourned. Thank you.